All right, so you set it up in the news letter very nicely. You talk about how, okay, the Democrats dispatched of this story in the media very nicely. January 6th, this was January 6th, part 2, despite the fact that the guy believed in Jesus. He was Jesus for a year and in little fairies. They were like, no, Trump caused it, January 6th, right? It's like they had dispatched of this.
Of course, yes. The focus was not on the blogs about how he's communicating with fairies and he has to build a wooden, space to communicate with his fairies. No, it was focused on certain blog posts which had to do with election integrity, election fraud, COVID, some of the other, the QAnon talking points, and they said, okay, well, that's what it is: right-wing political violence again, and move on. That really was how the story was for about 6 days, all the way up until Friday morning.
Just to underscore it for our audience, as opposed to a homeless guy on drugs who is reportedly in the country illegally, thanks to California being a sanctuary state and San Fran being a sanctuary city, breaks into a home and yet another evidence of crime run rampant in San Francisco. That's the other possible narrative, right? So that one, no, they dispatched of that and they settled on Jan 6th, Republican messaging, and we're good. Okay, great. But then nasty little reporters like yours truly and others started to ask more questions like, well, it doesn't make sense. Like we said on our show last Monday, why would Paul Pelosi open up the door and look at the police officers, and the police officers are standing there and the defendant is like, all good. And they're just standing there having a convo. And then they started arguing over the hammer, and then the police jumped in. The guy hurt Paul Pelosi right in front of the cops, which jumped out at us as odd. And we said, this smells funny and we want more facts. Others went further and jumped into full conspiracy theory, which we did not. But the blowback has been no questions should be asked, none. So we'll get to that in 1 second. Enter NBC, which is also a conspiracy theorist, as it turns out, because one of their very well-respected and trusted correspondents did what?
Yeah, Miguel Almaguer on Friday morning on the Today Show, a very prominent perch. This was not, OAN or something that this was going on. It was on the Today Show, talking to Craig Melvin, gave a report on, quote, new details that he had learned from several sources on what happened when police arrived at the Pelosi residence. And he did reveal, we've got a SADA on it, but he revealed some very interesting new information, not jumping to conclusions, and notably also making it very clear that the attack did happen. Police witnessed an attack. Pelosi, when it was, hit in the head with the hammer by DePape, it was all of that is true. But the question is, what were these odd circumstances that happened? And some new also timeline questions as well that he put out there on Friday morning. It started blowing up because the Today Show tweeted it, because they put it on their website. Mm-hmm. It was a story that, as I would imagine anyone would be proud of, because it was new details on a very important story that's in the news.
Mm-hmm. He's California-based and thus presumably had the connections, too, to break such news. Here is just a little bit of the now expired report.
After a knock and announce, the front door was opened by Mr. Pelosi. The 82-year-old did not immediately declare an emergency or try to leave his home, but instead began walking several feet back into the foyer toward the assailant and away from police. It's unclear if the 82-year-old was already injured or what his mental state was, say sources. According to court documents, when the officer asked what was going on, defendant smiled and said everything's good. But instantaneously, a struggle ensued as police clearly saw David DePape strike Paul Pelosi in the head with a hammer. Investigators have previously said Pelosi did not know DePape when the 42-year-old broke into his home. Why Pelosi didn't try to flee or tell responding officers he was in distress is unclear.
Fear takes over. Fear freezes people.
Law enforcement officials tell us the bottom line here is this was a terrifying situation. We still don't know exactly what unfolded between Mr. Pelosi and the suspect for the 30 minutes they were alone inside that house before police arrived. Officials who were investigating this matter would not go into further details about these new details.
You point out, Steve, in your newsletter, that timeline is important.
Yes. So the timeline, we know that the phone call to the police took place at 2:23 a.m. and we know police arrived at 2:31 a.m. We didn't really previously know when the supposed intruder went into the house. We now know that it occurred, I guess, at 2:01 a.m. So there was a now 22-minute period where we know that there was interactions between Pelosi and the intruder before the 911 call took place. That's not something that had previously been that delineated before this report.
Mm-hmm. And we were all, like those of us who are curious journalists, had been asking questions like, and you outline these in your piece as well, how was Pelosi able to call 911 in the first place? Why did the assault only happen after the police arrived, which is what we were asking last week? How was Pelosi able to open the door for police while being essentially held hostage? Why wasn't there a security system with an alarm that went off after the glass broke at the back door when it was opened at 2 a.m., instantly alerting the police to a break-in? I would add, why and how was he able to leave the bathroom that he went in to call the police as well? Why didn't he run into the arms of the cops when he opened the door and he saw police? Why didn't he run into their arms? You know, they were right there. They have guns. Like, all these are good questions. And San Fran PD has been like, you're not getting the body cam footage. You're not getting security cam footage, and really has been holding the cards close to the vest.
Yeah, exactly. And that last point, the one about why did he, when he opened the door, I mean, that was really, I think, the most eye-opening part of Miguel's report. Why didn't he, once the police opened the door, because we now know Pelosi himself opened the door for the police. Why didn't he just say, I'm being held hostage here, or run away? We don't know. And that was what was raised in the report. And that is, as you mentioned a couple of times, that is what essentially we think caused NBC to, quote, expire this video, not just delete the tweet that they had put out from the Today Show, but to literally remove it from their website, to where now when you go to that link, it says this video has been expired, which is
okay, but it's worse than that.
Rare.
As you point out in the newsletter, it gets worse than that, because not only did they delete it, and I said this, Janice Dean and I were actually talking about this over the weekend. She's the star of Today's Show. I was saying what's weird about it is, normally if you realize you've made a mistake in a report at NBC, you would post, here is how we were wrong. We apologize for, misstating the following facts. We got it wrong, and here's a full clarification. They didn't do that. They just said it wasn't up to NBC's reporting standards. What does that mean? That sounds a lot to me as a reporter like Nancy Pelosi's office called and yelled at them and they bent the knee, right? That's what you would say. That's how you would cover it. So other reporters called NBC, including you, to try to get an explanation. And as your newsletter makes clear, you say they tried to release a little to the inquiring reporters, and then they tried to launder information through willing reporters like the Washington Post to try to get out more damaging information about their own report.
Exactly right. As you mentioned, the editor's note said it did not go up to reporting standard. The quote that was given, an NBC source, which I got, which the Washington Post, which CNN got, is that a source for the story, a key source, the main source, was deemed, quote, unreliable. Unreliable is a really interesting word, because I pressed NBC multiple times. What was inaccurate? Was anything inaccurate? And it was very easy for you to say the report was inaccurate in this source statement. They notably did not do that, only that the source was unreliable and that the report did not meet reporting standards. So if there was anything wrong at all in the story, why didn't they just say that in the actual, in any of these venues that they could have? Instead, as you mentioned, in the Washington Post in particular, there's all of these unquoted, unattributed explanations about, well, there were lots of inaccuracies. That people think, well, what were they? Why doesn't anyone say that? If that's the case, they're not going on the record. And I checked again this morning to say anything was inaccurate at this point. And the reporter has gone completely quiet as well.
Yeah, and Paul Farhi, who wrote it up in Washington Post, clearly being given some background information on what a shitty reporter Miguel is, right? Because they're throwing their reporter under the bus. He got it wrong. The things they won't say publicly, they're kind of like, it appears to be leaking to Paul Farhi of the Washington Post. He asked the question, is he going to be disciplined? Good question. If he's this bad, if he's screwed up this badly on a story of this magnitude, let's see, what are they going to do to Miguel?
Well, and of course, they haven't answered that either yet. They haven't answered any of the other questions. And you have to imagine some of this is the timing. Obviously, the election is tomorrow. I don't think that this is a story that NBC wants to be paying a lot of attention to from any of their angles right now, because the election is what they're trying to focus on. And that's unfortunate, because I think that eventually we'll find out more of this about this story. If at the very minimum we find out what was wrong about Miguel's piece, what was it? Just let's find out. Why was it expired from the website? That's not going to be happening anytime soon. It doesn't seem. And even despite all this, so you think like this is a good reason to ask questions about what else is there. Why? Maybe the police, maybe it's, as I kind of floated in there, maybe what happened is that the police are trying to kind of spin this because obviously they didn't do their job that great because they actually witnessed the assault before the assault ever happened. That's not great either. And the report sort of raises doubt and gives them a little bit of deniability of, oh, well, we didn't really know it was the Pelosi's house. We didn't really know it was this big scene. Maybe that's part of the story. We don't know any of that. And now everything just gets painted as, quote, misinformation for even daring to ask why we don't know more about the circumstances here.
Carmen in Cedar Rapids, Iowa says, I have struggled to find a product that does not irritate my skin. This is the only one that I have been able to use without problems. Not only do I love it, but my skin feels like velvet. I love, love, love it. From now through Thanksgiving, you can treat yourself to JennyCell's most popular package, all their best stuff, for 70% off at jennycell.com/MK. jennycell.com right now. It's the only skincare product you will ever need. Right now, every one of their most popular packages, they include JennyCell's hyaluronic acid correcting serum free. You get it free in any one of those most popular packages with the 70% off, right? So it's a good deal. JennyCell products delight men and women with inspiring results by correcting your daily skin problems like wrinkles, dark spots, dry skin, sagging jawline, facial redness, even those annoying bags and puffiness. And with JennyCell's immediate effects product, JennyCell guarantees results in as little as 12 hours or your money back. Order at jennycell.com/MK60. Your most popular package includes a holiday gift set plus free holiday express shipping, I should say. So you get the free shipping, you get the gift set, you get the hyaluronic acid for free, and you get 70% off. Why wouldn't you call right now? Or just go to the website, GENUCEL.com/MK60, jennycell.com/MK60. Hey, thanks so much for watching. If you like what you just saw, hit the subscribe button for more clips and full episodes.